Hello there, and welcome back to the Net Report. Chris here, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Jakob and Tariq. And wow, what a Super Bowl for the ages. The Chiefs defeat the 49ers in overtime 25-22, securing their third Super Bowl win in 5 years. And this was a game that really started off slow with a lot of sloppy football, but man, did it pick up towards the end and end in such dramatic fashion with the walk-off touchdown. I'm going to kick it to you, Jakob. Tell me what you saw.
I was not as mesmerized by the game. I would not classify it as a Super Bowl for the ages. It had a good fourth quarter and beyond. I don't think that either of these teams' quarterbacks played particularly bad. I don't think either of these quarterbacks played particularly phenomenal. I think that this was a game dictated by defense. Both these defenses, I thought, came into it with a very good strategy for how they wanted to play the game. And I think for the most part, both of them executed it particularly well for most of the game. I think where the faults in this game lie came down to coaching and some unfortunate injury circumstances in the regards to Dre Greenlaw. I think that was, if I had to choose a few key things that happened in this game, that would probably be at the top of my list. Just because everything after that, you really saw the field open up that much more for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, because Greg Greenlaw was no longer covering that middle of the field with Fred Warner. It was a nightmare after that in regards to that. And I just think that this is one that the Niners let slip away. Two turnovers by the Chiefs, one with Pacheco fumbling the ball at the goal line, the other just a very sloppy interception by Mahomes. They should have converted one of those two into points, and they got 0 points off of both of those. And I think that, along with some really bad play call decisions from Shanahan, led to the Niners just letting this game slip away from them, which has been Kyle Shanahan's MO at this point. Just to be very honest with you, this is third Super Bowl that he's been in, two of which he's been the head coach, and in all three they've blown 10+ point leads.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with what you said. Shanahan really did let that game get away. And it, like you said, it really was sloppy to start off. You had multiple turnovers from both teams. You had the two 49er fumble losses. You had, obviously, like you said, the Mahomes interception, the Pacheco fumble. And that's really the story of the game. And we mentioned it a little bit last week when doing our predictions. If the 49ers did not get off to a super hot start, and they didn't dig themselves in the hole, so I'll give them credit, but I mean, that's something they shouldn't have been doing the previous couple games. Against this Chiefs team, when you get those opportunities, you have to take full advantage of them, and they sure did not. And small little mistakes here, like the Jake Moody missed extra point, those turnovers, I wouldn't call them small mistakes, but those turnovers they didn't capitalize on went and bit them in the butt. And when it came to clutch time, man, the Chiefs take advantage. Mahomes leads that drive down the field, and that's all she wrote. You kind of knew what was coming the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, you don't pull away from the Chiefs at any point in this game, really. You kind of let stick with them the entire time. You're up by a score coming out of halftime. Chiefs get the ball first, the very first possession. The Chiefs throw a pick, middle of the field, I want to say. And as an offense, you go 3-and-out. There was just no real momentum from the Niners at any point. It just felt like they were hanging around, letting the Chiefs, which is crazy because every Super Bowl that I feel like the Chiefs have played in, teams have not buried them outside of the Bucks. They've kind of always just let them linger, let them linger. No one's ever put them away, which to both Mahomes and Reed's credit, that's part of them. Like, they don't let themselves get completely out of the games unless you don't have an offensive line in like the Bucks Super Bowl. But the Niners just allowed this game to kind of be played at the Chiefs' pace. I mean, like, it's truly incredible how little they did to kind of stop the Chiefs from, or to put the Chiefs away. To be very honest with you,
And that's the crazy thing, too. This Chiefs team was a team that looked pretty lost and just all out of sorts during the first half. Like, you obviously had the animated huddle at the beginning, led by Chris Jones. You had the Travis Kelce, Andy Reid thing on the sideline. You were thinking, wow, this Chiefs team's really falling apart. The only one who really felt like they were super level headed was Mahomes. And maybe not the only one, but like one of the few. And of course, they come out in the second half, they start to get their act together, and 49ers not capitalizing, man. It's just, even when things are going wrong, you can't put this team away, which just is crazy. I mean, it speaks volumes to Mahomes and Andy Reid, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, overall disappointing to see Shanahan kind of fall short once again. Tariq, what did you see out there that your special eye caught that maybe we didn't?
I'm just here for Usher.
Oh my.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Tariq Ryan here for Usher.
No, but I watched it from start to finish, like probably both of you guys did, and there was a lot going on. Honestly, 49ers starting off the game going 10-0 in the second. And from there, you could really sit back and think like, oh man, the 49ers got this in the bag. But in all honesty, if you look back at that Super Bowl 4 years ago, you know that you can't count out Mahomes and you can't count on the 49ers keeping a lead. And that's what we saw last night. Of course, the beginning of the game, just a lot of mistakes happening. Of course, you do got the Jake Moody missed extra point. You got Christian McCaffrey fumbling on that first drive that could have put them up even more points. And it's also injuries that happen. Greenlaw being taken out was a horrible thing that happened. They had to rely on Logan Ryan a lot, and Logan Ryan was not up to par for some of these Chiefs boys that were seeking around him. Just like that last touchdown, he was the guy in the middle of the field that leaned out a little to the left and did not cover. I believe it was McCole Hardman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the guy that wasn't covering McCole Hardman. They took out the safety by Travis Kelce, basically running into the guy, and that's all they wrote. It's just big things that happen that cause minor small things to play out for the Chiefs. Greenlaw being hurt was probably the biggest turning point in that game. Once he was gone, Pacheco was able to run. They were able to do more passes to Kelce over the middle. It's just Fred Warner couldn't cover everything, and the guy to his left or right weren't able to help him out.
Yeah, when talking about turning points too, Dre Greenlaw injury definitely felt like a big one. That Jake Moody extra point definitely lingered large. And honestly, and I think we all thought it, once the 49ers kicked that field goal in the fourth quarter to only put them up 3, you were like, man, they're going to come back and they're going to at least tie this. There's no way they don't. And I got to give the Chiefs defense credit too. They blitz on both third and four downs in overtime and in the fourth quarter, ends in incompletions. They really, and that was the
Again,
difference between the four.
which is what is so confusing to me for Shanahan. Like, the Chiefs. It's like when you go up against Wink Martindale. You know what's going to happen on third and fourth down.
You're gonna get blitzed.
They're going to blitz you. Like, that's what they're going to do. That's their specialty. How you
And
don't run the ball or at least RPO it or something to let that possession on 3rd and 5 end in an incomplete pass before the 2-minute warning is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be honest. As soon as I saw that, I told you, Tariq, already. I put a bet in for the Chiefs to win as soon as I saw that because you had a feeling, you knew. And I do want to highlight because I feel like some of the media has been talking a lot about like Brock Purdy. I thought Brock Purdy played a fine game. I mean, he didn't do anything over the top to like be like, wow, they got he really drove the 49ers and willed them to practically be in this game. It wasn't anything like that, but he was good. He was pretty good. And
Doing says
For a
he was a
quarterback starting his
game manager. No.
for a quarterback starting in his first ever Super Bowl, in his second ever actual NFL season,
As Mr. Irrelevant.
yeah, especially as Mr. Irrelevant, I really thought that he was very composed and poised in the pocket. The problem was that the defensive line of the Chiefs were just causing a lot of disruption, and he did what he could to move the pocket. And there was actually a few really good plays where he moved the pocket either to the left or the right, very Mahomes-esque, and made a very good attempt at a pass or a pass that was complete. The problem was that yes, the coverage and the assignments was just incredible. Like, it's so incredible, some of the coverages that we saw from the Chiefs. Trent McDuffie, phenomenal, truly phenomenal. What both he and the entire defensive line did for this Chiefs defense, they really kept a lot of these players in check. They essentially took George Kittle out of this game, and they allowed a lot of these 49er receivers who are known for their run after catch. Yes, they still got them, but they kind of limited them. They kept the ball in front of them. Not to say they were playing zone for the entire game, but they were quick on the tackle. They were right there, and if there were yards after catch, it was very minimal. There really wasn't any super explosive plays, to be very honest with you, outside of the Jawan Jennings fake reverse touchdown pass to McCaffrey.
which was beautiful, by the
Oh,
way, might I add.
that one, I love that one. Chris saw that.
Yeah, that won you big money, Tariq. That won you big money. Crazy. I'm surprised I even had that prop for you. Non QB throwing a touchdown, but shout out Tariq, man.
Yeah.
Flip side of Brock Purdy, I really want to highlight what we also did see from the Chiefs.
Mhm.
I mean, we saw a very. I said it earlier where I feel like neither of these quarterbacks played bad nor overly spectacular. Mahomes kept them in this game. He single-handedly did. I think he, along with his defense, kind of elevated this team. There were a few throws, I will openly admit, that were a little scary, but when they're complete, who cares? I mean,
Most certainly.
he just like I alluded to earlier with Purdy, what he did, Mahomes also was under constant pressure. There was constant disruption from the edges from both Nick Bosa and Chase Young. Eric Armstead, we're all rushing him the entire game. And it was kind of a chess match. Sometimes you'd see Nick Bosa fake to the outside and cut in, and Mahomes had to counter with that by pushing the pocket up. It was truly the one part of the first half that I found most enjoyable was that chess match between them. And I really thought that as the game lingered on, you saw a lot less disruption from that defensive line in the way that it actually disrupted Mahomes because they were still getting through. Mahomes was just breaking the pocket out left or right more and just kind of doing things he did himself. I can't remember if it was the end of the fourth quarter or on that game-winning drive where he got that huge run on fourth down. I think it was
that was OT
overtime.
And
Yeah. It was
That
like
was-
4th and 3, 4th and 2, something like that. And I
just
remember
ran.
screaming at my television, why are they not in I formation? Why are they not in I formation? Why is there not a running back in the backfield?
Mhm.
And Tony Romo on the broadcast called it out pretty well. You're not going to give this ball to anyone else besides Mahomes. Of course you're not. And he got them 5-6 yards, and I think he had another pretty long run on that drive as well. Ended up having 66 yards on the ground with his legs, 333 through the air. It was a good performance by him. It wasn't generational, but they won the freaking game. It ended up coming down to, of all people, McCole Hardman catching the game-winning touchdown, which feels like a parody somehow, but I think
I
there's
blacked
something-
out when it was thrown to me.
And that was one thing I wanted to highlight too. You touched on it quite a bit there, Jacob. That last drive by Mahomes, like definitely the
It was Mahomes.
defining moment of that game. And really, when we look back at his legacy, we're gonna look back at the Super Bowl and be like, "Yep, that was the Mahomes moment." That run, like you mentioned, he had 3 incredible runs on that drive. That like he had the 10-yard run that really I think got them like inside the 15. He had that one
And you and I
4th down
talked
run.
about it.
And
Talked about it last week.
Mhm.
If they let Mahomes do Mahomes things where he runs out of the pocket and uses his legs, or if one of these receivers steps up, and to their credit, both MVS and McCole Hardman stepped up in a big way. It really did.
mhm.
We knew Kelsey was going to have his game. Rice didn't maybe have as explosive his game as we maybe thought he would have, but
Still
MVS
moved
and
the
McCole Hardman
chains.
showed up to this game. And not to say that they won them this game necessarily, but they contributed. That's all they needed, to be fair, was a contribution to this team. And Mahomes did the rest. Mahomes, C.H. Spagnuolo, and Andy Reid. Like that's if I'm going to credit this win, it's the 3 of them right there.
100%. And wow, I mean, if anything, like that last drive, just magical. Those runs, and then really just attacking that soft coverage from San Francisco. It really felt like like we said, one team played aggressive on defense and got a stop, the other did not. And honestly, that last play to McCole Hardman, it really felt like, just complete
It felt like they were asleep.
wizardry from Andy Reid. I mean, from clock manipulation to get in the playoff, having McCole Hardman wide open. They ran that same play against the Eagles with Kadarius Toney and scored. Like, it just, they keep
Kadarius
scoring
Toney.
with that play every single time. They can't keep getting away with this, but just
They sure do.
absolute,
But
like,
you're right, though. The Niners were a whole lot less aggressive on defense on that overtime
mhm.
drive. I want to say, so the first play of that drive was, I don't remember who caught the pass. It was either MVS or Hardman, to be honest. I don't remember who. But they catch it, and then they end up being bounced backwards by like
Oh,
10 yards.
MVS,
That
yeah.
was MVS.
Hmm.
So now the drive's 2nd and 14, and so it's like, okay, the Niners kind of played a little less aggressive. They kind of moved back in their zone a little bit, let the ball come to them. They end up getting, what, 8 or 9 yards? So now it's 3rd and short.
It was
And
third
then
and
what
six.
happened?
Yep.
It was 3rd and 6. They run it up the middle for like a yard or two. Now it's 4th and manageable. Of course they're going to go for it.
Hmm.
And not play. I don't know. It was like both offensively and defensively. The Niners just kind of like put the snooze button on in both the fourth quarter and overtime. I don't know if there's something fundamentally wrong with Shanahan where he doesn't know how to close out games, but it's crazy. It just felt like they just didn't want it. Like I really don't understand why you're not saying you need to attempt a blitz, but get on the receivers. Play man to man. Like these aren't generational receivers. Yes, keep an eye out for Kelsey. But who are we talking about here? Like, if MVS beats you, okay. Like, that player deserves to get fired then. But you got to be more aggressive, especially in overtime. It's do or die. This is where legacies get born. You
Yeah,
don't want to be Dan Marino. You want to win a freaking Super Bowl.
yeah, just disappointing from the 49ers, but I have to give it to Mahomes and the Chiefs. Just a magical drive, and really that, like I said opening up this podcast, that's where the game really felt magical. Like, walk off, you don't get to see a walk off Super Bowl every year. And starting with the game that was really sloppy, teams. I mean, I think for most I think there were 5 minutes left and the score was like 3-0 or 0, it was something like that. So we were like, wow, this is going to be a real defensive battle. Kind of turned up. Like, you don't get to see things like this every year. Sometimes the Super Bowl's a blowout. Sometimes it's not as close. You got to appreciate them when you get them.
It was a fine Super Bowl. I don't think it was anything overtly memorable. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan, yes, you're going to find it extremely memorable. If you're a Patrick Mahomes diehard, you're going to find it memorable because I don't know that I would say it's his best Super Bowl win because I think as a team, beating that Eagles team is still a much better win in this. I think.
I think that
It's tough.
I think if you're comparing roster to roster, I think maybe the Niners had the better roster coming into the Super Bowl, but that Eagles game was also just such a shootout. There was more wow factor
Yeah.
to it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm caught up in the moment a little bit. But, and again, if you're a Niners fan, this is also pretty memorable to you. But outside of that, I just think it's going to get lost in the overall shuffle of things. Kind of very similar to if you're a Patriots fan. The early Rams and Panthers one kind of get lost in the shuffle. Maybe it's more recency bias, but they kind of get lost in the shuffle sometimes. They're just, I don't know. Maybe it's way too much recency bias on this one. I just wasn't overly mesmerized. I think it's an incredible stamp in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' legacy card, but overall, I don't know that it's going to have a long and lasting effect as far as us remembering it, to be very honest. And the one thing I will add to this for the Niners is it's kind of dwindling down now for Kyle Shanahan. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but 2 as a head coach, 1 as a coordinator, 0 for 3 and all. There's kind of a trend building, and he's still a top 5 coach in the league. But
But it's crazy though. Like you said, he's 0-3, but he's 0-3 in the Super Bowls while leading. He had to lead in all 3 of those Super Bowls by a decent margin at a minimum 10 points.
10 plus and all, like that's
just something like you look at as like a manager of the team, and you look at that, you're like, it's just bad luck at this point.
It's Doc Rivers-esque.
Yeah, Doc Rivers-esque.
At least Doc
It
Rivers
seems
won that
like
one,
he
man.
feels like he has a lead, and then he just keeps pursuing the same thing and doesn't try to do something that'll catch him off guard.
Very predictable. I do want to end off with one question, though. This is going to be the controversial part of the video, but we've of course heard it throughout all the media talking shows. A lot of people starting to get Mahomes towards this GOAT conversation. I want to know your guys' opinions on that, and do you realistically think Patrick Mahomes has a chance to end as the GOAT, and what's your opinion on that status as of right now? I know Jacob's going to have some very heavy feelings towards this, so I'm going to let you start off right away.
I don't know. Let him go first.
Is he now? No. Is he close? No. Can he be there? I mean, theoretically, sure. He could go on to win 5 Super Bowls in a row, and sure, that we could be talking about that. But he's not there now. Like, yeah, let's take all the recency stuff out of it and throw it away. He's won 3 Super Bowls before the age of 29. That's incredible. It truly is. Think about the talent he's had in some of those. I mean, like, just think about it. They've kind of been blessed, and to be fair, they've won 2 of the 3 without Tyreek Hill. They've won all 3 with Travis Kelce. And to be very honest with you, this is the only Super Bowl where I look at him and I'm like, yeah, he transcended the team here. It wasn't like the team played with him. He transcended this offense. And I think a lot of things are going to play a factor in this long term, but he's not even close to what Brady is. Because how can you even compare it? It was the same argument that I had to go through when Brady won his 3rd one. Everyone's like, oh, well, he's not better than Joe Montana yet. And then he ended up winning 4 more. And that's like, everyone begrudgingly was like, okay, yeah, I guess he's better than Joe Montana. Like, where is the same argument with Mahomes? Why is he not getting the same? Because now he's the golden boy. Like, it's just very frustrating. I think he has the ability, yes, to be the best of all time. It's going to matter on a lot of factors, though. Andy Reid's not going to coach him forever, is one of them. Like, that's becoming very obvious. There are rumors before this game even started that this might be his last one. And there's not going to be a 20-year pairing of Andy Reid and Mahomes. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Like, it's not happening. So at some point in Patrick Mahomes' career, he's going to have a new head coach, which means a new system. That doesn't always work out. It's just the reality of it. Andy Reid has won them these 3 Super Bowls. He's at least been a big part of them. Look at the other side. Kyle Shanahan played a big part in losing 3 Super Bowls. So a head coach is a pretty big deal, no matter how talented of a roster and player you have. The other thing is just longevity. Tom Brady played for 21, 22 years, something like that, and was really only majorly injured for, I want to say 1 of them, maybe 2. For sure 1, maybe 2.
I think it was just 1, just that ACL year.
I know he had, I think it was just that 1. I know for sure that 1 year.
And then he sat the first year, but yeah, aside from that.
Yeah, but that's incredibly rare if you think about it. And Rodgers has a very long career as well, but he's had a lot of injuries in the past couple of years that have, in all honesty, kind of kept him out from winning or possibly competing in more opportunities for Super Bowls. And just in general, like, health is getting, like, the overall science and health has been getting better, but who knows? I think the talent and ability is there, but I don't think the situation's there. I just don't think it is. I don't know. It is very frustrating, though, that we are all of a sudden jumping on this GOAT. Like, we're just completely disregarding the things that Tom Brady did. People act like Tom Brady won Super Bowls with gods. He lost the one with Randy Moss. Won a Super Bowl with Malcolm Mitchell and Chris Hogan. He went to one with Brandon LaFell. Yes, he elevated and has been held by people like Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, and Julian Edelman. But let's all look at each other and be honest. None of them are Hall of Famers. There may be an argument for Edelman, maybe. But, like, those are very good receivers, but not great ones. And he's been surrounded by good defensive talent. So is Patrick Mahomes. So it's not a fair comparison in the sense that it's apples and oranges, and even to a worse degree. I think there's an argument to be made, is Patrick Mahomes better than Joe Montana? But it's just not even close to compare him and Brady. Just because he's on a better pace does not mean long-term he'll even come close to that.
All right, Tariq, I want to hear your thoughts.
I say he has a chance. He's already let's be honest, he's at 3 Super Bowls right now. But that doesn't automatically put him in the spot with Tom Brady. Let's be real. Tom Brady's got 7, but Tom Brady's got 7 over a very long time. He still has time. We still have to see how his career unfolds. Does he get hurt? Does he continue to play at this pace? He's playing with not so great receivers out there. Let's be real. He had a short struggle through this year with a couple of these receivers. Kelsey had a slump at some games in this year, and we just got to see how Mahomes is able to adapt and keep pushing forward. He's still got a couple of QBs to really beat. I feel like if they do end up winning next year, he's at least in the top 3 spots of QBs right now, because
I'm gonna
no
tell you
QB
this
is
right
that
now, Tariq. If he three-peats, he's automatically 2. It's not even
exactly.
close. If he three-peats, he's 2,
If he's
and the margin between
3
him and
peats,
Brady just grew exponentially smaller.
exactly. Like they're already talking about, oh, we're gonna try to 3-peat. If he 3-peats, he's already up there. But it's the point that Patrick Mahomes was drafted in, was it 2017? I was gonna say 2018. 2017. It's 2024. He's only been in the league for 7 years, starting for 6 of them, and he's already at 3 rings. He's already fighting for a top QB spot. He could go to any team and do whatever he wants, but he is the Chiefs franchise right now. He's gonna stick with the Chiefs. Like Jacob said, we have to see what he does once Andy Reid finally pulls the trigger and says he's done coaching. But as of right now, I feel like Andy Reid's gonna stick around just because you have a top QB that doesn't show any sign of slowing down. I feel like he's most definitely got the shot to surpass Brady, especially if he wins this next one. If he wins this next one, he's most definitely in that top conversation. But there's no conversation until he hits 6.
Ooh,
I
spicy ring culture.
I disagree with a few of those. I don't think Andy Reid sticks around for that much longer. Just be very honest with you. He's 69, I want to say. 65, okay. 65. That's old, though. That's really, really old to be a coach. That's just the reality of it. The oldest coach I want to say right now is Pete Carroll, and it's kind of weird comparing the two of them because I always think of Andy Reid as being slightly older. But with the rumors
It's like I said,
that
you have to see once once Reed leaves, because like I said, he's not going to stay forever, but I just feel like he's going to stay a little longer because you have a top QB. But it's once Reed leaves, we have to see what Mahomes is able to do.
I mean, Reed's already won 3. I think he's fine, to be honest. If he retired, he's a top 5 coach of all time, behind both Shula and Brady, or not Brady, Shula and Belichick. Trying to think if there's anyone else I'd even put in that conversation. And I also just want to throw in there, Travis Kelce's getting up there in age as well. I mean, it's not like you just can find a Travis Kelce replacement. Like, 34 years old for a tight end. I'm not saying we've seen signs of regression,
Yeah.
but he plays a very physically demanding role. And he's kind of the main focal point of what this offense has been the past 2 years since Tyreek Hill has left. It's like when
Tyreek
all
Hill
else
left
fails,
and they won 2
epic.
rings.
Travis Kelce will get you 100 yards. Take
Mhm.
that out, with the receivers you have, the offensive line didn't look great down the stretch. It's a little concerning. They've worked magic, and we all said similar things after Brady lost some weapons, and they just kind of churned it out. And after Wes Welker, hey, here's some more white guy receivers who can catch the ball. Here's Julian Edelman. And Gronk came out of nowhere, even though another tight end had an unfortunate situation happen. So there are always players to be found, but Kelsey and Reed kind of on the tail end. Who knows long term? There's also a ton of the league has never been better.
But it's the point that we have to see what Mahomes is going to do once they finally call it. Like you can always find someone in the league looking for a new team, in all honesty. But it's the point that what could they do with draft capital? What could they do with free agents, trading? What is Mahomes able to do after his certain people leave?
I will say this. I want to rebuttal a little bit. To answer the question I posed earlier, is going to be, I don't know, this might come off as controversial. I think Mahomes is number 2 all time right now. I don't think
I give
that's
him
that
number
crazy
3.
to say, but
I don't know if that's that crazy to say. I said that you have to compare him and Joe Montana more so than comparing him to Brady. I feel like that's a fair thing to say. I just
I
don't
put him
think
at
you can
number
say
3.
he's close to 1. I think that you just have to compare him and Montana.
mhm.
I would agree with you that he is 2. I think that the margin between 2 and 3, him and Montana, is relatively close, though.
Like I
Right
said,
now I have him as 3. I got Montana above him, just by a small margin, though.
I think he's 2. I definitely think he has the ability to surpass Brady as the GOAT. It's going to depend a lot on Kansas City and how they rebuild. Like, after this little first era, I will say this, though. Kansas City has done a damn good job kind of retooling the roster over the last few years. You let Tyreek Hill go. You put more money into that defense. That defense, in all honesty, like we said earlier, is a big reason why they ended up winning this championship.
You
I
let
definitely
Tyreek
think
Hill
there's
go, and you won 2 rings after that. Come on.
insanity.
And let
I
him go.
I
but-
think there's a pathway for sure. I definitely think there's a pathway. It's really going to depend on the Chiefs, and like you said, after what happens after Andy Reid, what happens after Travis Kelce, because Mahomes going to outlast all of them. It's going to come down
Probably about a
to
decade.
Taylor
He's gonna
Swift is
last
giving
them
Travis
both by a
Kelce his
decade.
knee.
And the crazy thing is too, Mahomes only 28. Like, we've seen quarterbacks play, like we're seeing Aaron Rodgers play until 40. We saw Tom Brady play till 44. I mean, that's an anomaly. That's a very, like, we've never seen anyone do that before. But we had the same conversation, the Cliff conversation with Tom Brady. Oh, he can't play another 2-3 years. He played another like 6-7 years after the Cliff conversation. So I definitely think I'd be surprised, barring injuries, God forbid injuries or that shorten his career, but I'd be surprised if Mahomes didn't play till at least 38, 39. That's a lot of time, man. That's a lot of time. I think there's a pathway.
I would put his window to the age season of 40.
Mhm.
So what I'm considering, and there's about a decade worth where you're probably not going to have Kelsey and Andy Reid. And I don't think people really think about how consequential that is, the
Oh, it
pairing
will
of
be.
a quarterback and a coach. It's so immensely consequential.
And
So
that's the
I
thing, like you
agree.
said,
What
you
they
give
do next to retool, it's going to lead to his. It's going to have more to say about his direction of a career than he himself will, because he's going to do what he's going to do. Like, there's just no way around that. Like, he's not going to all of a sudden fall off a cliff. Like, that's just not how this works unless something comes up.
And I will
Taylor
say this, I will say this too. I'm not necessarily one that believes he has to get to 7 to surpass Brady. I've always said this before. I don't necessarily believe, and we live in a day and age with ring culture. You have to have this many rings as this person. Look, if
you do got
Mahomes
a
goes
point
out
there.
there, if Mahomes goes out there and he has a couple Peyton Manning, Tom Brady has seasons where he has 50 touchdowns, but his team is just in the playoffs, like, you don't got Kelsey anymore, you don't got Andy Reid, that's still got to count for something. Reminds me of 2018 LeBron, where he didn't have the team, but probably one of the best seasons of all, or playoff runs of all time. If we see something like that from Mahomes, it's gotta count too. I mean, if he were to stay at 3 rings, I don't think there is a realistic scenario we can pass Brady, but if he gets to even 5 and he plays for that long, he's definitely the most talented, like,
Got to play for at least
skillfully
40,
gifted.
38,
No, of
40,
course, he
though.
needs the longevity. He's
gotta
gonna
have
need the
he has to-
longevity because
It's
Tom
not just
Brady.
about the Super Bowls; it's about the records. Or
No,
at least getting
100%.
somewhat.
It is- That's another thing.
100%.
The records, like, if he could come at least the passing record, he needs some type of record to go with these rings. That's why people like, what's it called, the big conversation, Jordan versus LeBron. It's because LeBron has the records. Like, without the records, you're not really pushing for a GOAT conversation. That's why someone like Bill Russell isn't talked about in the NBA as a GOAT much. You don't have the records.
So I think it's very interesting, and that's why I wanted to pose the question, because it's a lot of back and forth with it. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next decade. We'll see, man. It's gonna be a wild ride.
I just want to. He has to break a record, some type of record as a QB to get up there.
Personally, I hope the record he breaks is most interceptions thrown in a season.
With the way his receivers were supposedly catching the ball and smacking into defenders, I could see it happening. Kadarius Toney.
Hey, we stand Kadarius, or not Kadarius Toney,
you
but
hear me. Throw the most interceptions, you coward.
and still
Not
win.
gonna do that when Josh Allen's around.
Oh man, shots fired.
No,
But yeah,
I'm a
Please
Giants
let us
fan. We have
know
3
down
QBs.
below what you thought of the Super Bowl. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you maybe think it was just kind of meh? Let us know, please. Like, subscribe. This has been the Net Report podcast covering up the Super Bowl this year.
thank you for tuning in. Like Jacob said, hit that like, subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. And comment below what you thought of the Super Bowl and if you think Mahomes has a chance to be the GOAT. As always, thank you for tuning in and have a great one.
Bye.